Hey, what's going on, everybody? And thanks for joining us again for a Liticast episode. I'm John Wright. I'm going to be your host today. Joining me is Josh Schwadron. Josh, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. For all those out there that's listening and viewing, tuning in, make sure you join us live right now on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and live on our website, litify.com/Liticast. Josh, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, but before I do, John, I understand this is your first Liticast, so I wanted to congratulate you and welcome you. I've watched a lot of Liticasts; they're great, and I'm sure the team's excited to add you to the mix.
Oh, I'm super excited to be here. My face isn't normally this bright red, but it's usually a lighter tone.
So a little bit about me. I grew up in Miami, Florida. Went to school at the University of Michigan. And then went to law school at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia. And I came to New York, practiced a little bit of law, but was very interested in the business side. And I think notable for this conversation, about 6 years ago, I had the opportunity to kind of combine two of my passions, which were law and business. And I started a small fund that was acquiring interest in litigation, in personal injury litigation, which is now a big industry. And I did that for only a very short period of time, kind of many moons ago. And what I saw was this kind of fascinating world where, it's not just that personal injury lawyers are the ones who are taking contingency interests. There's a wide range of different players who all have interest in cases and provide services to plaintiffs during cases. And I found that world fascinating. And instead of investing in that world, I was much more interested in building technology in that world. I have a technology background. And so about 4 or 5 years ago, we started Mighty. And we've been building software for a group that we call lien holders ever since.
Very cool. Very cool. So what we're going to do today is I want to learn a lot more about Mighty, and I want our audience to learn a little bit about Mighty today as well. But more importantly, how that kind of couples in with Litify, the platform that we have today. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna run through a couple of questions, if that's all right with you. And then obviously, I want our audience to interact. If you guys would like any questions or comments for Josh, feel free to comment them in, and we'll try to get those in for you. Just to kind of kick it off, can you start off by telling us why you created Mighty and the problems that you're looking to help solve when you started that idea?
Yeah, so we created Mighty because we saw that there was an industry that was growing, which were service providers were taking financial interests in personal injury cases. So the dynamic, I think, is important to kind of state at the outset, which is a plaintiff gets injured. Many of them can't afford the thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars it costs to pursue their case. And there's this amazing concept that's developed that certainly contingency lawyers know well, where instead of having to come up with upfront cash, a plaintiff is able to go to a personal injury lawyer and say, hey, provide me legal services in exchange for a contingency fee. And that model has worked out well, and it's given justice to so many people who wouldn't have otherwise been able to afford to pursue it. What not many people might realize, though, is that exact same concept is actually applying in other types of services. So let's take medicine, for example. There's a lot of plaintiffs who were injured, need treatment, but they're not able to afford to pay for the treatment in cash. Their health insurance may not cover it. They might not be able to get treatment. And what has happened kind of analogously to what's happened with contingency lawyers many moons ago is that now doctors are starting to take interest in cases in exchange for providing medical services. And that has further enabled a lot of plaintiffs to be able to seek treatment that they need but wouldn't have otherwise been able to get because they couldn't afford it. And similarly, there's an industry of funding companies, which I think amongst a lot of lawyers is a bit more controversial, where a lot of plaintiffs can't afford food or rent while they're waiting for their case to settle, and might need to kind of take money in advance and might sell a little interest of their case to a financier. And so what has developed is that the plaintiff now has a lot of agency with the consultation of their lawyer to go out and hire people that will help further their health, their case, making sure that they don't kind of go into poverty or bankruptcy. And instead of requiring upfront money, they're taking interest in their cases. What essentially happened, though, is that you started having all these people who own these interests in their cases, but nobody had actually identified them as a customer set by which to kind of build for and make more efficient. So on one side are lawyers who are tasked partially with paying out settlements out of their escrow account at the end of a case. On the other side, and they use case management systems like Litify. On the other side, you have, for example, doctors, and they have EMRs. But what was missing was nobody had thought about, well, how do you actually streamline and automate how these two disparate groups work together?
Right.
And so that's where kind of Mighty entered the picture, trying to solve that problem of making it more efficient for
bridging a gap.
That's exactly right. For law firms, personal injury law firms, to work with medical providers and funders and other people that we call lien holders.
That's awesome. So really focusing the attention on the third-party applicants that are associated with the actual cases that the law is working on, correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yep. I think we saw case management systems were doing an amazing job for law firms and helping them run their business. But the reality is that part of their business is relying on other people's technology and how other people communicate. And we identified that as an opportunity.
That's awesome. One of the most frequent complaints that we hear from law firms is that lien holders are constantly asking for updates. Do you think you can explain the frustration more on both ends? Why law firms and lien holders are so frustrated? Is it because they're not getting their updates on time? Is it because they're having to make a series of phone calls just to get updates? And how does Mighty really kind of solve for that?
Yeah, so this is a really fascinating problem because in our business, we constantly talk to personal injury law firms. We constantly talk to medical providers and funders. And I can't tell you how many times we hear them swearing about each other. You know what? They're the worst. They're bothering me constantly. And it's actually true on both sides. And so law firms are really frustrated because the law firm says, listen, we're lawyers. We want to file the demand. We want to negotiate the settlement. We want to prepare for trial. And we know your lien's on file. Stop bothering us. You'll get paid at the end of the case. Don't worry about it. Like, stop calling us and bothering us. And then you get these requests through email, through fax, through phone incessantly, and in a non-standardized way. And it's very frustrating for a law firm because they're like, this isn't our responsibility, a lot of them think.
Right.
On the other hand, you have a doctor, for example, who literally provided a complicated surgery, not because they were going to get reimbursed by insurance, not because they were going to get paid in cash but because they have an interest in this case and they want to know, like, what's going on with the case. Is it close to settling? Did it lose? Did the plaintiff happen to change law firms? And for them, the stakes are also really high because a lot of them have been burned where they have an interest in the case and the case settles and the law firm has forgot to pay them. And so they're very sensitive. And one of the only things that they can do to make themselves feel better, but also make sure that they stay on top of the law firm is ask for statuses. What's going on with this case? They believe that being proactive about it is the only thing they can do, because very seldom are lawyers proactive kind of back.
Right.
And so you see this kind of tension that exists that we think really creates a lot of unnecessary costs and inefficiencies of money.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we've kind of set out to kind of solve.
Right. And law firms don't want to do that. They want to build that relationship between medical providers and insurance companies, because the business can be, flowed both ways at that point. You want to be building that relationship, not putting tension on it.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. I think one of the things that that kind of is also true is that they have relationships, as you mentioned, but a lot of time there's actually like contractual duties back and forth. So it's not uncommon for a medical provider, for example, to in their what we call LOP agreement or a lien agreement that the law firm might sign, for it to say that the law firm agrees to provide periodic updates on the case. There's some ethics lawyers that I talk to who actually believe that law firms might even have a duty to provide updates for third parties that have financial interest in cases, and so it's complicated, and there's not a standardized, structured way for how it works today.
So, if I'm understanding you correctly, before Mighty came out, the only way for doctors, physicians, people of that nature, to get those updates on these case statuses was by email or by phone.
Or amazingly, still by fax. Yes.
By fax. I forgot all about fax.
Yeah. So yeah, that's exactly right. So and interestingly, one of the reasons that they use fax is that some medical providers believe that fax is a better HIPAA standard than email, which I think that there's a lot of validity to. Sure. And they haven't had a HIPAA compliant way, the doctors haven't, to actually get statuses other than by phone or by fax.
Gotcha.
And so, imagine this scenario. A medical provider has treated 100 plaintiffs at a law firm. They need updates. They fax a list of 100 cases. There might be at a law firm 10, 15 different paralegals who are assigned to those 100 cases. And so we know law firms where they literally take a fax and they walk it around the office from one paralegal to the other and ask them with a pen or pencil to fill in the status. Once it's gone around the whole 15 paralegals, they fax it back. And by the time that gets done, that provider wants another update, 30 days later. And this is not uncommon. And it's just because there hasn't been a concerted effort to kind of figure out a better way of doing this.
Yeah, and I mean, we're talking tons of calls per day, tons of time, productivity being wasted.
Well, if you do the math is actually really interesting. So, there are different prevalences of this phenomenon depending on the state that a law firm is in. So some states, Georgia is a good example. There are on average 6 or 7 what we call lien holders on every case. So a medical provider, a funder, there's rental car companies. There's a number of different lien holders that who get paid at the end of a case. And a law firm that might have 6 lien holders per case, they have 500 cases that they manage. That's 3,000 right there. And these lien holders typically want updates 3-4 times a year. We're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of updates that are being sought out, and it creates a vast amount of time suck, inefficiency, switching cost that the law firms kind of are really upset about, which I understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah. So to unpack this a little bit, just so our viewers understand a little bit more, Mighty is going to be basically a portal gateway for the third-party vendors that are associated to cases at specific law firms. It's going to be a way for a case management solution like Litify to be able to push our updates automatically on cases to Mighty, which in turn can just be distributed to any vendor that's associated with that case. They can log in and get their automatic status updates and things like that, which is fantastic. That's going to save a ton of time, a ton of money on their phone bills, and it's going to be great. No more faxing and things like that. Obviously, I want to eliminate faxing altogether, but we're probably not quite there yet. But
yeah,
we're getting close.
I think that's exactly right, John. We have a very audacious goal, and we've been actually meeting and hitting it, and it's really exciting. So here's our audacious goal. We want law firms to never have to do a case status again for a medical provider, funder, or other type of lien holder, but while at the same time making sure the people who are supposed to get updates, like medical providers and funders, get them whenever they want them. So how do you, on one hand, make it so a law firm never has to do one of these updates again and never has to get one of these calls again or emails or faxes again, while at the same time delivering them in real time, accessible 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to the people who need them, like the medical providers. So that's exactly what we sought to do. And John, I think you described it well. The way that we do it is by integrating with great case management systems like Litify. Right. And so that is, that's really exciting. And certainly I'll talk about the integration, whenever.
Sure. Yeah. So I do want to pass it over to you in just a second, but my question really, and you might be able to show us this, it might be easier to show, is how do these vendors access these updates? Like, are we talking like just getting an email, or they have a place that they can go, like a portal or like a hub that they can just kind of view and see all of their cases that they're a part of, and they can manage all of their updates that way?
Yeah, so Mighty has a HIPAA compliant portal that any medical provider, funder, or any other verified party that has an interest in a law firm's cases can log into for free, and see the update 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so our vision of the world is that a medical provider will be able to log into Mighty and see all of their cases updated without having to call, email, or fax the law firm in order to get it. And then again, conversely, the law firm is able to populate those case status updates without having to lift a finger, spend any time, have any paralegals work on it. What's cool about Mighty is that there have been some medical providers that have tried to build their own portals, and they've done it for themselves. So you have, ABC medical provider has a portal, EFG medical provider has a portal, XYZ medical provider has a portal, and they're typically not well built. But the worst part about them is the law firm sometimes does even more work having to deal with them than before. Mighty, we're a software company. We're a technology company. We're not building this for ourselves. We're building a universal portal for all the medical providers, all of the funding companies, all of the people who have interest in these cases, so that they only have to log in once and see everything in one place, even though the data that they're getting is from disparate law firms who are giving them updates.
That's awesome. Well, I'm pumped to see this thing. Is there any way you could show us a sneak peek?
Yeah. So what I've done is I've just taken a few screenshots. Everything's live. We've been the portal's been working now for 2 years. We have over 1,000 different medical providers and funders and other lien holders using it. It's been going fabulously well. I'll show you a few screenshots so I can take you through the flow, because I think that will help you kind of get what we're doing. So let me share my screen now. Let me know, John, when you're able to see it.
Yep, I got it.
So we have built an integration with Litify. As we are talking to law firms around the country, one of the kind of consistent themes that's coming up is Litify and the kind of great work that they're doing and the technology that they come to kind of bring to bear. We made a decision a number of months ago to make a big investment in Litify, very similarly to how apps make big investments in, for example, the App Store with Apple. We think that Litify is just going to be growing and growing, and so we're excited to be one of the early partners that is really kind of making a key investment because we're just super excited about what Litify is working on. And so anyone who uses Litify is able to simply install our app into their Litify instance. It takes 60 seconds to do. And once that app is enabled, which is step one, Litify will automatically pass very basic case information to Mighty. So we only collect about 5 fields. It's all very basic things like the plaintiff name, date of birth, date of loss, and the status of the case. And that enables a law firm to never have to think about the status updates, how the data is getting into Mighty again. We also, so that's kind of really seamless. From there, when medical providers or funding companies or other lien holders need updates, they simply go to Mighty and they can register for a free account. Once they register for a free account, they're able to list all of the plaintiffs who they have interests in a law firm's cases with. So ABC Chiropractic will say, these are the 5 plaintiffs who I've treated and have an LLP or a lien on their case. That data then is matched with the data the law firm provides us. And we display the status update to the medical provider in the application. And anytime we see that the status changes, we'll send that medical provider an email telling them that the status has changed so they can log back in. The effect of this is that because all of a medical provider or other lien holders' information and updates are in Mighty, they completely stop calling the law firm, stop emailing the law firm, stop faxing the law firm, which saves a lot of time for both sides.
Right, absolutely, man. That is cool. And then from a Litify side with the integration, there's literally no extra steps. There's no extra steps because as they're working the case, as they're going about their natural workflow and updating the case, the status changes as they're working. It's going to automatically ping Mighty. Mighty's going to send out the email to the vendor, the doctor, whoever it is that's logged in and syncing with that specific case and plaintiff, and boom, they're on their merry way. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think that's the coolest part is, for law firms, it's free. For law firms, it takes, but a few minutes to set up the integration that we have with Litify. And after that, the only thing they have to do, which actually sometimes is easier said than done, is just not do the updates. Is make sure that people know that they're able to get their firm updates now on Mighty for free. That's been it's been going incredibly well for us. We have a number of Litify customers on using this feature. We have a number of other law firms who aren't on Litify, so it's been going incredibly well.
That's awesome. Very cool. And it seems like a no-brainer question I'm gonna throw at you, but how is Mighty going to help the law firms build better relationships with those providers? And it seems pretty obvious. But
yeah, it's interesting. I will say that while it seems obvious, I'll maybe point out something that's maybe not so obvious. Some of these providers are a bit, how do you say it, not very technological. And there sometimes is resistance. What? I can't send this fax anymore? I've been sending the fax to you for 10 years. You always fill it out. I love seeing the paralegal's handwriting on the fax. And when they're told that they have to do this new process, often they're resistant. But just like my father, when he first got the iPhone after years of resisting, and he said, I'm never going to be able to figure this out, within 24 hours, he's like, I can't believe I waited this long. And so what we found is that law firms who really adopt Mighty and decide to stop doing updates are not only saving a lot of time and efficiency themselves, but the relationships that they're building with the people who come to rely on them for these updates is significantly better, because that tension I described at the beginning of our conversation is now gone.
Right. We talked a little bit about, and you mentioned this earlier, the 5 fields that you basically provide the providers. So whether they're a lien holder, whether they're a doctor, whoever it is that's basically logging into Mighty to get the status updates. We talked about those 5 fields a little bit. Is there any, I guess, I hate to say worry as the word to use, but is there any concern there about sharing more information than needs to be shared, or is it limited to just those 5 fields?
Yeah, so it's limited to those 5 fields, but there's actually, this is a really kind of important point. There have been a number of issues where a law firm paralegal, when answering the phone, when answering an email, will actually provide too much information. So when I used to invest way back when, would sometimes call a law firm and ask what was going on with the case. And there were a lot of times where the paralegal didn't just tell me the demand has been filed or the trial has been scheduled, but they would go into a 15, 20-minute play-by-play. And sometimes I would get uncomfortable because they would give me information that was clearly confidential, that was clearly attorney-client privilege. And unfortunately, when you have paralegals who are doing updates and aren't kind of trained on the right confidentiality and the right standardization and what attorney-client privilege is, it's very hard to control as a law firm the information that is being given out by paralegals. And so when we designed this product and we talked to law firms, what law firms told us was they wanted to make sure that all of the statuses that the medical providers and funders had access to, they wanted to make sure that they were standardized and they were generic. They were just enough information to make sure that the medical provider or funder knows what was going on, but not enough information to divulge anything proprietary. And so the reason we only the only reason we accept only 5 fields is we don't want any more information. We only want to show the lien holder the very basic information to know that the case is still in existence, give them a general sense. So our statuses are things like trial scheduled, demand sent, and they're generic, and they're things that we vetted as the gold standard of updates on both sides. So I think, long story short, obviously, I'm a little bit biased and think everyone should use Mighty for case status updates. But if you're a law firm out there and you decide to continue doing case status updates by phone, I would really encourage you to have training with your staff to make sure that they are not divulging confidential attorney-client privileged information.
Yeah, agreed. So I guess the new norm would be for a firm that decided to go with something like Mighty would to be to direct their staff receptionist, whoever's answering those calls, and say, hey, please log into the web portal and access your case status that way, but saving them on the compliance issues. So
that's exactly right. I think a law firm is now able to say, hey, we now have a way for you to check them online. Simply enter the basic information and it's there for you.
Yeah, doesn't get much easier than that, I don't think.
Yeah. And it's free for law firms.
The fact that you said free, I thought for sure there'd be comments coming in like crazy, but that's amazing. That's an awesome way to do it. Well, I'm going to turn it over to the audience there. If there's any questions coming, if anyone has any comments or anything like that, please go ahead and post those for us. Josh, I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add in closing here.
Yeah, look, I think we're really excited to improve how the medical providers and funders on one side and law firms who manage these cases on the other side communicate and collaborate.
Right.
Key statuses for us is just the tip of the iceberg, and I think we're excited to find other ways of providing a lot of value to increase efficiency between how that communication and collaboration happens.
Sure.
And so we're I think key statuses is probably the biggest pain point that a lot of law firms have. We're super excited with a partnership that we built with Litify and the solution that we have. I think I encourage people to reach out to us with other thoughts or ideas of how we can, further improve that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way the world's going nowadays, especially with the COVID thing, I feel like people are starting to embrace that self-service portals out there. So, with the Litify customer portal that we have, and then the Mighty portal that you have, I mean, both sides are serviced at that point. So that's really going to streamline the efficiencies and allow the firm to focus on the important matters, which is the client and getting the case solved.
Well, I think that's a really great point, and something that I was talking to someone on your team about recently, which is Mighty only focuses on what we call lien holders, which are medical providers and funders. Mm-hmm. And why this Litify integration is, I think, so valuable is that Litify has built this amazing client portal where clients are able to log in and they're able to get the status without having to call the law firm.
Yep.
And I hear from law firms that it's been going amazingly well, that they love the feature, that it's cut down on calls. And so this is like that perfect symbiotic complement to that, where if you're happy that you've now gotten rid of client phone calls, you're going to be even happier when you get rid of phone calls from people who aren't even your client.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's kind of cool that we found this symbiotic relationship that now we're able to go to someone and say, if you're using Litify, you shouldn't have to do updates for anybody because you have the client portal that's built natively in Litify. You have the lien holder and medical provider portal that you can now utilize for free for Mighty. And it's exciting to have those kind of conversations and see people kind of just like instantly get it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think we're going to have a beautiful partnership and a great future ahead of us, Mighty and Litify both together. It was an absolute pleasure having you on here. I think you guys have built a phenomenal product. I'm so excited to have it, for our clients for the future. So I really appreciate you joining us today, Josh.
Thank you so much, John. And look forward to continuing the partnership as well.